Then I'll get GoGuardian started and then we will get started. Those of you just logging in, we are looking at the biodiversity unit in Canvas. Okay. Who are you?
So you think you know Wix? Do you really? First up, we've got Shake.
Okay, keep that right there. Alrighty. Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome back. Hope everybody enjoyed their long weekend. The weather has certainly changed. Our environment is changing. All right. So just a few housekeeping things to say, so not get everybody in like again, so I don't have to repeat this 5 times. All right, so we're going to be working out of biodiversity today. But before we get started on that, I wanted to say that we are in the new 9 weeks, and the new 9 weeks is going to step up the game a little bit. We appreciate most of you who are in class on time within the 5-minute range of allowance. But yeah, you are allowed 5 minutes. And after that, when I look at GoGuardian and I see you're not logged in, I'm going to mark you tardy. After that, you're either absent or tardy after the first 5 minutes because that's when attendance is taken. So I want you to get here on time. Stay on camera. A couple of y'all last semester, I saw the ceiling more and then I saw your face. You are required by this course to, by the school, not by me, by the school to be on camera at all times. So I shouldn't be looking at you logged in and then I'm looking at the ceiling all the time. Um, Also, a lot of issues came up last time with I graded stuff and Canvas marked it as a 0 because it was late. So it actually calculates so many days late and it takes off points. So it doesn't matter what grade I give it. It's going to start taking points off for late assignments. So we're not going to have that backlog of late assignments like we had last semester. We're going to try to stay on top of things and be current. And this semester, I'm not taking late off. Okay, so if it's late, whatever Canvas says it's late, whatever grade Canvas gives it, that's the grade it's going to be because you should be trying to, as AP students, you should be trying to stay on top of your game. Okay, so please try to turn in assignments on time. All right, from what I can see there, we're still missing 2 people. But I'm gonna go get started anyway. All right, so again, log into Canvas. We are looking at biodiversity and let me, let's see, Jada is here. Okay, so I really just have 2 people. William. There you go. Again, William, I'm looking at your ceiling fan. Journey, I'm looking at your ceiling. So I should see some semblance of a face, head, something going on, not just the ceiling fan. All right. It also tells me when you're idle. Also, this semester, because right now I'm looking at some of y'all that got like 5 and 6 things logged in at the same time that you're logged into this class. This class requires a lot of attention, and I'd appreciate it if you'd give your attention to that. So this should only be maybe 1 or 2 tabs open at any given time. Like I'm looking at a couple of you that got about 5 tabs open right now. You should only have Canvas and this course open at the moment. Okay. I've also organized, there's on YouTube, I've actually created an AP folder for the playlist. So from here on out, all the videos we watch and all the videos that we tape daily will be in the AP folder playlist when you look at YouTube. So if you wish to go back and look at what we're doing, or if you're absent and you need to go back and look at what was done that day, it's now not just on the YouTube, my YouTube page, but now it's actually filed as AP. Okay. All right. That being said, let me go ahead and click these two people as being absent. And we will get started. Okay. All right. Let me share my page with you for a minute. So you Friday you started working on a case study for biodiversity. Uh, it's not due until Fridays. Two of you finished already. As I haven't, all I know is that you finished already, but I hope you didn't rush through it because again, I'm grading for all the points to be as outlined and answered in completeness. Short answers get short grades. Okay. When you, those of you who are doing the AP exam, they are grading on content. How much information can you back up a statement? Some of you just give a statement, but you don't back it up. A lot of you also copy and paste, but you don't sit to analyze what you've copied and pasted. So when you're asked that question separately, you don't really know what you've said. All right, so where we are right now, so I want you to get out of the habit of copying pasting, and I'm going to be looking more closely for copying pasting this semester. All right, so this is where we are. We're here on Introduction to Biodiversity. So we're going to watch a video this morning that's going to, this afternoon, that's going to touch on these three topics right here. They are important to the discussion of biodiversity. So you need to be able to take this word bio meaning life and diversity meaning a variety, and understand how it affects all of the ecosystems. So in this video, he's going to actually go back a little bit and redefine ecosystems. Then he's going to break down what each of these categories are. And I'm going to pause it every once in a while for you to take notes. So do have a pen and pencil ready to take some notes. Okay. All righty. So I have checked off the sound, so hopefully you will hear this. I've also put this already, I believe, saved it in the AP folder. So there it is in the folder. So you'll be able to go back and watch it again. All right, again, I will pause. All right, so let me stop for a sec. On your paper, right? Why is biodiversity important to ecosystems? All right, that's the title. And we need to know that. And that is the focus point of the case study that you were doing. You were looking at a particular ecosystem and looking at the biodiversity there. And what are we doing to maintain it? So that was the focus of your case study that you were working on. All right.
Why is biodiversity so important? To understand why biodiversity is so important, we must first understand what an ecosystem is. An ecosystem is a community of living organisms.
Okay. I stopped it there. So you need to write that down. And you don't have to write what is, just write an ecosystem is a community of living organisms. But if you remember when we were doing our hierarchy, this also included our biotic and abiotic factors. So we were talking about community was the group that came before ecosystem, and community did not include biotic and abiotic factors when we were looking at the organisms inside it. Ecosystems do. And so what our abiotic and biotic factors in an ecosystem are important factors in our discussion of biodiversity.
interact with each other in their non-living environment. For an ecosystem to function and survive, it needs biodiversity. Biodiversity refers to the number and variety of all living things, plants, animals, insects, and all living things that exist within an ecosystem.
All right, so write that down. Biodiversity includes all of the living things in an ecosystem, the plants, the animals, the insects, the living things, and the non-living things. How they interact with each other. I take this back just a little bit.
Variety of all living things, plants, animals, insects, and all living things that exist within an ecosystem. There are three types of biodiversity: species, animals, plants, and microorganisms. Genetic diversity: animals, birds, aquatic animals, and terrestrial animals. Plants, trees, flowers, shrubs, herbs, and mosses. Microorganisms: bacteria, fungi, algae, and plankton. Ecosystem diversity: forest ecosystems, grassland ecosystems, desert ecosystems, aquatic ecosystems.
Oops, okay. I'm not gonna make you write this down because those are the three categories that we have on Canvas, but you do need to be aware of those three areas because those are the three areas you're gonna be tested on. Okay, so again, when we come back to Canvas, we're gonna talk about those three topics, and he's gonna break this down for you some more as well.
Desert ecosystems, aquatic ecosystems. Why is biodiversity so important to an ecosystem's survival? Circle of life. Life depends on life to survive. All living species are interconnected and need each other to
Oops.
survive. For example, plants feed on soil. Insects feed on plants and in return pollinate plants, helping them to spread and bear fruit. Birds eat the fruit, helping new plants to grow by dropping seeds. Birds die and microorganisms feed on them. Microorganisms then release nutrients into the soil. Nutrients then feed the plants and the circle of life is complete.
All right, so what I want you to say, biodiversity is important in an ecosystem to maintain the circle of life. Okay, write that down. You need to know why it's important. And then you need to understand what they mean by the circle of life. All right, so imagine this picture as a circle and what happens if we take one out or we add one in, add something else in. And how would that affect the circle? You always have to be thinking about how does adding or subtracting an organism affect the circle? Okay?
Characteristics of an ecosystem with a rich biodiversity. Areas with rich biodiversity have good soil, more food, cleaner air, cleaner water, plants for medicines, building materials, fuel, and energy, minerals, less harmful pests and diseases.
All right, I'm going to pause it there so you can write that down. Characteristics of a rich biodiversity. I think there actually is one more
All
point.
these factors offer humans social, economic, cultural, and ecological benefits.
Okay. So pause it there. Please write that down. Why do we need, how do we know an area is going to be rich in biodiversity? And this matters because we were looking at the consequences of our interfering with an area, an ecosystem. Are we disturbing their soil? Are we removing the food? Have we polluted the air? Have we polluted the water? Are we able to get medicines and building material and fuel and energy? And this is one of the reasons why we're destroying so many of the rainforests, is because we are trying to get these things and use these things so we don't put back what we take away. All right, what minerals can we get from an area that is rich in biodiversity? And if everybody is healthy in this ecosystem, then there are fewer pests and diseases. How does that affect us? It affects our social, economic, cultural, and ecologically. Socially, economically, culturally, and ecologically. That's how it is. Okay. All right. So I'm making these points because these are things to consider. Those of you, I know two of you have already submitted your case study, but those of you who are still working on it, these are things to consider in your answers. Okay. I'm going to let him keep talking.
Why warm climates provide greater diversity? In certain parts of the globe, we'll find greater biodiversity than others. An international study done by a team of scientists shows temperature drives biodiversity. Data revealed that more plant species can grow in warm temperatures. That means more food and types of food for animals.
Okay. Write down temperature drives biodiversity. Temperature drives biodiversity.
This in turn leads to greater biodiversity. Loss of biodiversity. The effects of biodiversity loss can have dramatic effects on an ecosystem. The smallest decrease in biodiversity disrupts the balance of an ecosystem. There are two main threats to biodiversity: natural biodiversity loss, seasons. At the equator, where climates are steady, you have small seasonal changes. Natural cycles cause changes in temperature and rainfall. These changes affect the rise and fall of biodiversity.
All right, write threats to biodiversity. Natural, you don't have to write all of that, just say natural and then write seasons. Threats to biodiversity. So there are natural threats, seasonal changes, and then we live in one of those ecosystems that has a drastic change during seasons. So you can see what it does to your ecosystem as far as what animals stay in our area, what animals leave, the vegetation that changes during this time of year. So it changes the biodiversity.
During the warmer months, plants begin to grow and produce food animals to eat. In turn, these animals breed, causing the area's biodiversity to rise. The opposite happens during the colder months. Plants stop growing and producing food. Insects begin to die out. Animals either migrate to warmer areas to find food or hibernate through the winter. Because they rise and fall every year, this kind of natural biodiversity loss is sustainable. Natural ecological disturbances. Nature is always changing. Earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, and wildfires all have an effect on biodiversity loss. In areas affected by natural ecological disturbances, species have to migrate.
Okay, I'm gonna pause this. You can write down natural ecological disturbances and then write down what they are. Drought, fire, tornado, blizzards, hurricanes, like we just had. That have devastated a lot of the South right now. In Georgia, especially in Atlanta, we have a lot of trees in Georgia, not so much in other places, but we are a terrestrial ecosystem, and so we have a lot of trees, and trees go down, causing a lot of damage, and then it also disturbs habitat. when we have these natural disasters. Again, as often as possible, I'm going to relate what we are talking about to what's happening to us right now. So, for example, right now, we are all suffering the effects of that last hurricane. We've had severe environmental changes in a lot of places. I watched the news the other day. There's one whole island in Florida where there's nothing left. It's the sea tides and the winds just covered the whole place with dirt and sand. And so the resort that was there isn't there anymore.
Searching for new homes and food. These disturbances are temporary. The ecosystem will adapt and return to the affected area. Human-driven biodiversity loss. Humans are the biggest threat to biodiversity loss.
All right, so this is number 2. Okay, the other 2 were natural. These are not natural. These are human-driven biodiversity loss.
These disturbances caused by humans have a lasting impact. They destroy ecosystems and biodiversity. Growing human population. Between 1970 and 2021, the human population has grown from 3.7 billion to 7.9 billion.
All right, so the first point underneath that is growing human population.
Construction of cities. With this rise in the world's population, more and more space is needed. Cities and houses are built for the booming population.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it there. So number 2, construction of cities. So population is 1, construction, and these are things humans are doing.
More and more land is needed to grow food to sustain the growing population. Over 40% of the world's habitable land has been converted for agricultural purposes.
All right, farming. And then also add that more land is required for farming to feed the increasing population.
.77% of which is used for feeding livestock. Pollution. A growth in population equals a rise in consumption, which leads to a rise in waste produced. Waste pollutes and destroys the ecosystems around us through plastics and chemicals.
All right, number 4, pollution. I keep stopping this because you should be writing these things down. I'm going to ask you, what are the points on each one?
It also takes up space. Stretches of land must be cleared to create landfills. All the waste produced by human consumption is dumped here. All this human growth expands on the ecosystems, forcing species out of their natural habitats or wiping them out completely. Disruption by non-native species.
All right, this is the 3rd area. All right, and he's going to give you some vocabulary words here too. So,
There is a less common but growing threat to biodiversity: the disruption of ecosystems by non-native species, also known as introduced species, invasive species, alien species, or exotic species. These are species that have been brought into an ecosystem either by humans or have migrated from other areas.
okay, I'm going to pause it there so you can write those down. So you do need to be familiar with each of those terms. Introduced species, invasive, and they all mean the same thing. One, I don't know about in your area, but up here in this area, kudzu. Y'all familiar with kudzu? Do you know what kudzu is? I'm gonna let y'all look that up. Kudzu. Kudzu is an invasive species to Georgia. So I'm gonna give that as an extra credit assignment. Okay. Figure out what is kudzu and where did it come from and why is it considered an invasive species to Georgia. I'm gonna write that up for discussion tomorrow. Okay. And again, if you're doing the AP exam, they like when you can give examples from where you are, when you can relate. Okay. When you can relate, I'm gonna let Ethan back in. Okay. Whoops, he's glitching again. All right. So again, I'm going to ask that question tomorrow, so that's something that you can be looking up. What is kudzu and where is it? How to get to Georgia?
Because these species are not native to their new area, they often have no natural predators. Natural predators keep their population in balance with the ecosystem. Non-native species can become overpopulated, eating local crops too quickly for them to grow back in natural and sustainable cycles. This goes for plants as well. Non-native plants may grow much faster in a climate they are not used to, stealing all the soil nutrients and sunlight native plants need to grow. Other non-native species can become the predator of the ecosystem, wiping out local animals that before had no predators. Some ecosystems are not equipped to sustain such predators. The loss of biodiversity may begin with the loss of one species, then quickly lead to more and more species will die out or migrate near the sea. Where do you find the greatest amount of biodiversity? Amazonia. In the warm tropical rainforests of South America lies Amazonia. It holds the greatest amount of biodiversity.
Okay, I'm going to pause at this. Your question and your statement would be the greatest amount of biodiversity is in the Amazon. You don't have to call it Amazonia, is in the Amazon. Anybody tell me why? A note that you put down earlier. Why is the greatest amount of biodiversity in the Amazon? Somebody type it in the chat. Wrote down a note about this earlier. Why do you think the greatest amount of biodiversity is in the Amazon? Yes, it's huge. So you got a lot of surface area. But what's another key factor that's going on in the Amazon? It doesn't happen every place else. I wouldn't say that not too many humans are affecting because they're going there. So they are starting to affect it because they've noticed that medicines and all kinds of things are there. Then, thank you. High temperatures and precipitation. Remember earlier, if you didn't write it down, write it down. Temperature drives biodiversity. Temperature drives biodiversity. So temperatures are very, very warm in the Amazon. There you have this the rainforest. We have your rain, most of the rainforest, most of the plants on the planet are in Amazonia, as they say. So temperature there drives the abundance of biodiversity on the planet.
It is an area so large that it covers 8 countries. How does loss of biodiversity affect humans? The answer to that question is scary. An ecosystem is like a chain kept together by links. Destroy one link, and you destroy the whole chain. Planet Earth is an ecosystem filled with smaller ecosystems, surviving off of biodiversity. Do not stop the loss of biodiversity, we will lose ecosystems.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it there so that you can write down. The loss of biodiversity affects humans by doing what? Anybody got an answer to type in the chat? You lose food sources. That's one. It destroys ecosystems. What else? And it does this because it does what? Because it breaks the chain. Again, and y'all might have thought it was just a Disney thing, the circle of life. It's for real. You need to remember the circle of life is important because everything is connected. So you take something out of the circle You destroy one ecosystem, it affects another. You take out one organism, it affects another. So it is important that we stop messing with our ecosystem. If carnivores lose, let's hope not. Let's hope that they switch to being vegetarians. uh, let's hope that we don't get to the point where having meat is so important to our diet. Now, notice what they also said about um, loss, that we created more farms so that we can have more cattle. Because we become such big meat eaters, we need to raise more cattle. Well, more cattle need more land to feed off of. And so we've converted, and which is an issue in the rainforest that they're having in the Amazon, where a lot of the natives there, their populations are growing, and they are starting to chop down trees in the rainforest to create farmland. We need to feed, and it's one of those back and forth kinds of things. We need to feed the people, so we need to create farmland. So it's a good thing, but we don't taking down all the trees is not a good thing. So you have to look at how do we create a balance in saving the people and also saving the ecosystem. So that's our dilemma right now. All right, he's just about finished.
By one, the ecosystems around the planet will have no biodiversity, nothing to sustain themselves, and unfortunately, will fail us all.
Okay.
Thanks for watching.
Okay. So hopefully you took good notes. Like I said, tomorrow I'm going to have a question for you. So let's go back and look at Canvas. All right. So here in Canvas, they went into a little bit more detail about those three areas that he talked about. Genetics. All right. So this will take you back to your biology days. And what is genetic diversity? So I didn't ask you to write it down from the film, but you can make a generalized note from here. That one type of diversity is genes. So we call it, here you hear the term, the gene pool. Okay. We want to, a lot of populations survive better if they have a better gene pool. Things tend to get weaker if you don't have a variety of genes and the same genes are being copied over and over again. So again, if you remember from your biology, that mitosis replicates the information on a particular gene. And if you're replicating the same thing over and over again without variety, then when diseases and things come in, you have no backup. You have no alternate defense. So gene diversity is important for having certain kinds of organisms in the population surviving when others won't. Okay, kind of the survival of the fittest attitude. And I'm sure that's an expression you've heard before too. It's going to become important here. Survival of the fittest depends on gene diversity. All right, so take a look at that. So, and it says click on these. So take a minute to read this section. Do click on population size, how genes affect population size, and then do click on mutations. What happens when we have mutations? Some mutations are good, some mutations are bad. All right, so take a few minutes to read that paragraph, starting at the top, and then we're going to come back up and look at species. All right, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. I'll be right back. And only about half of you are reading. All right, again, if you finished reading that one, switch to the next page and look at species. So he kind of touched on all of these in the video. This page gives you further explanation. Also, this particular kind of short video presentation gives you a thermal view of where the most biodiversity areas are on the planet. And again, temperature is a drive. You'll notice temperature is a driving force in where you're going to see, kind of bring that a little bigger, the most biodiversity. So it's drawn a triangle over here because, and think about where are these places? They're close to the equator. And you're looking at the scale at the bottom, the number of different species. Where do you find the different species? If you're looking at, what is that, Africa, you've got a lot of the red zone around the coast. So it's not only just the equator, but it's around you got moisture as well as temperature. All right, I'll stop showing that one. There we go. All right, and again, while you're on this page, look at these clips here about location, altitude, So go through the size, climate, and latitude, and isolation. In other words, isolated from humans. We're not disturbing, they're not, the population is undisturbed by outside interference. All right, then we have disturbance. All right, so we're going to have a couple of graphs as we go through that we're going to have to familiarize ourselves with. Okay, so the higher the species diversity is if it's only moderate. So if there's too much disturbance, it's not good. Too little disturbance is not necessarily a good thing either. Just a moderate amount. And a moderate amount of disturbance keeps a balance. So you have a coming and going of things growing and being destroyed, but growing back. So let you take a few minutes to read that. And then you have habitat diversity. Okay. So it asks you to click through the slides. Tomorrow I want to take you on a rainforest field trip. But just click through these just so that you look at and just note the differences in each. And that they'll tell you at the bottom here what the differences are in these ecosystems: desert, coral reefs, forests. Last one was tundra. Click tundra. Okay, so go through, read each of those. All right. So once you've done that, if you have extra time, then you use the time remaining to work on your assignment. And let me see here. If I go back up here, student view, and you go to your home page. So if it's anybody who doesn't know what assignment I'm talking about, it's the case study. So this should be on your home page. And those are the requirements of the case study. Okay. All right, if you've already, like I said, somebody's already submitted. If you've already submitted and you need to go back and kind of beef it up a little bit, remember I am grading for completeness, not briefness. All right, so again, you are to select one of these three, either tropical rainforest, the Amazon, a coral reef, or Costa Rica's natural forests. And then you're going to discuss what are the threats, what are the conservation efforts, and what are the impacts to conservation. And you should have pictures, include pictures. And then you need a reflection. So after you have gone through this, and again, the reflection should sound like it came from you and not like you copied and pasted it off of some website. When you get information on your site, try to not plagiarize and rephrase it, but also make sure that while you are doing the research in that site, that you cite your references while you're there so you don't have to remember, where did I get that information from? Somebody asked me the other day, do I reference pictures? Yes, you should. Okay. Yes, you should. And what you can do with pictures is to just put the site underneath the picture. Okay. All right. So leave you time, last, was it 15 minutes of class so that you can finish reading those tabs on Canvas or finish working on your case study. And again, it can be a PowerPoint or Google Slides. Those are the best way to do that. And if you have any questions, please ask. Yes, you can use Google Docs. Yes, you can. And again, I just remind you to please make sure that you save it um, as a PDF or a Google Doc so that I'm able to open it. All right, and I said tomorrow I'm going to ask you to do a discussion question on our Georgia's invasive species. Let me put it right here in the chat. I don't know why my chat types sideways. All right. Again, I don't know why my typing always goes vertical instead of horizontal. I'm gonna have to figure out how to fix that. Doesn't do that in every class. All right, so I put the discussion question for tomorrow in the chat. You're gonna pick one. You're gonna pick either the tropical Deborah, you're gonna pick tropical rainforest, which is the Amazon, or coral reefs, in particular the Great Barrier Reef, or to Costa Rica's natural parks. You're going to pick one of those, and then you're going to answer the questions with that. So you're going to start with what is biodiversity, and then look at biodiversity in one of those areas. Okay, so hopefully you've read all three tabs on the module for today. And also, I always encourage you to look at the AP questions or what you need to know as far as um, the AP tip is concerned. Okay, so you should look at the essential knowledge that you should have gained for today. Biodiversity in the ecosystem includes genetic species and habitat diversity. The more genetically diverse a population is, the better it can respond to environmental stressors. And then stressors would be things like habitat loss, um, death of organisms, loss of water, things of those kind. Those are stressors to an ecosystem. A population bottleneck can lead to a loss of biodiversity. You need to know what that means. Species richness refers to and that's a vocabulary word. Species richness refers to the number of different species found in an ecosystem. An ecosystem can have a larger number of species are more that have a larger number of species are more likely to recover from disruptions. That means if you only have one or two and then disruption happens, then those two are lost and there's no recovery. But if you got quite a few more, not everybody's going to be lost. Not all the animals and vegetation is going to be lost. So it can recover on its own. A loss of habitat leads to the loss of specialist species and generalist species. Okay. Um, and again, you should always think back on how the disruption affects biodiversity of that area. Okay. Having done all of that, you all are dismissed for today.